okay before you
Mm.
go? Did you have no aches and pain? Did you have no worries in life? Or were there not things in life that you were kind of not happy about? And now you're back to that stage where, where you think, right, so this is where I was before that happened. And now I'm
Yeah.
I'm back there. But this isn't really where I want to be, sort of thing.
Mm.
I still want to be better than this. And then you think, well, what stage do you then say, right, okay, so this is normal for me, you know? Yeah, it's
I
quite.
guess it refers to the health side of it. If there's something wrong with you, you got an illness of some sort, and you take medication,
Yeah.
and you get over that illness, you get over whatever the problem was. I think that's all it means is back to normal, back to normal health, perhaps not necessarily normal in other parts of your life. But yeah, I think normality, health wise, it's a very wide word, isn't it? Normal. It covers a lot of strange stuff because
I suppose it's a
we
state of
look around and see a lot of people who don't seem to be normal at all.
I know. I know. I suppose to me, I'm starting to think it's a state of mind. It's a state of mind where you think, I'm normal. And there are things that's happened today. There are things that we see today, and you think, well, that's not normal, is it?
Mm,
And to
absolutely.
that person, it is normal. It's
Mm,
perfectly normal to them.
mm,
And to some other people, it's normal. So in your circle of friends, it might be considered abnormal, right? But,
mm.
but then in their circle of friends, it could be normal to them. And then
Yeah,
now, yeah, so now you don't think, well, who is the judge of what is norm? What is a norm?
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
who's to judge what is the norm that we should have? Who do you look up to for norms? For things that you think that is normal. For instance, I don't think having pizza having pineapple on your pizza is normal. I think that I think
And
that's
some people do. You
I,
think it is, you don't
I know.
think it is.
I know. I'm looking at them and I'm thinking, you're not normal, are you? You can't have pizza. You can't have pineapple on your pizza. It's not normal. But then I've seen when because I used to live up in Scotland. And when I lived up in Scotland, I've seen not one person, but at least two or three people that would come to
Mm.
work and they'd have a sandwich. And the sandwich is not really a sandwich. So I don't know what to call it, but they'd have crisp in between the,
Right.
into the
The bread. Yeah, absolutely. And people put, for example, you read of people putting Marmite on with, well, an egg or something that seems completely wrong. So, yeah, what is normal? I suppose normal is we're talking about human behavior, aren't we? And we see some unusual
I
human
don't
behavior, which might make it abnormal, I suppose. It's something, there are certain acceptable behaviors in life that a majority say, well, yeah, that's okay. I suppose if some people step outside that and become either antisocial or very eccentric, then
yeah,
we would consider that as not normal, really.
yeah,
Give you
yeah,
one example I remember from a few years ago now.
right.
Um, as I've said before, I go to see Crystal Palace play. I go to the home games with a season ticket, occasional away games. But a few years ago, I went there with my boy Paul to Norwich. We went all the way down to Norwich, um, quite a long way from here, but because of course there's no motorway out there from this part of the world, so it's quite a long drive. Anyway, um, we obviously you sit in the ground with the away supporters, with the Palace supporters on that day, and I would say these days football supporters are pretty well behaved. I think from it was the late 80s where there was a lot of thuggery and all sorts of
Yeah.
stuff was going on in football grounds. But thankfully, all that has been controlled, I think, for the most part. So in then, and this has got to be, I don't know, 15 years ago, perhaps, when I just went to see Norwich beat our team, play our team Palace. And so our fans, Palace fans, have always been pretty well behaved. So there were quite a crowd of us there. I don't know how many, probably 2,000 or 3,000 Palace fans, and the rest would have been Norwich fans. And before the match started,
Yeah.
and it was the days where you had quite a few police in the grounds. I mean, you don't find that now unless they're really dicey games in terms of how the supporters react to each other.
Right.
But you don't often find police. You get lots of stewards who, you know, generally control what's going on. I think in some high tension games you get police waiting outside the ground. But anyway, on this day there were quite a few police there, and in the sort of 20 minutes before the game started, we were all sort of sitting there, as Palace fans, perfectly well behaved. I mean, some of them were singing songs before the game and all the rest of it. But there were police there, and there was one policeman, and he was clearly the boss policeman. He looked as if he wasn't too far from retirement. Great big chap with a flat peaked cap on, rather than the big helmet type things. And behind us, against the sort of wall, there were probably 9 or 10 police constables sort of standing there, not doing anything, just watching and making sure everything was okay. And there was this sergeant. He was obviously their boss with this flat cap. Anyway, he started walking. We're talking about normal or abnormal. He started walking down between the seats either side of our fans,
Yeah.
and he would say, "Oi, you, get out, come here." And he wanted to throw them out the ground. He said, "I'm throwing you out." And this is really true. I mean, there was nothing going on in the crowd. Football fans are a bit noisy. They cheer when the game is nearly going to start.
Yeah.
But he started to pick on people, and people thought, I'm not going to go out there. And he couldn't really get along the line.
Yeah.
So when that didn't work, he pointed to someone else who was honestly doing nothing wrong. It was a strange experience. Anyway, this carried on, and I remember thinking, and Paul and I said, I hope he doesn't pick on us, because you don't like to not. If a policeman says do something,
Yeah.
you would do it, certainly in a football situation. But no one was doing it. I think they thought, well, we're not going to go there and just get thrown out the ground for doing nothing.
Yeah.
And you know, I don't know what the policeman, the constables, thought behind. Anyway, he was he was getting redder in the face. It was a strange thing, and maybe he had other problems, but he was getting so angry, as if he was trying to make up problems which were not there.
Yeah.
Anyway, he was sort of, then he turned away from our row and he was looking just over to that row of our fans, and it's something I'll never forget. Most football grounds, they sell very nice pies, you know, pucker pies or something.
All right.
And all of a sudden, I mean, they're not cheap. I mean, probably then 10, 15 years ago, it was £3 or £4. Nowadays, you can pay £7 or £8. No, I don't have the pies. I don't really like them, but that's what you would pay.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, he had his back to us, this sergeant, great big chap. And literally, all of a sudden, a pie hit him, hit him on the back of the head. His hat went it went flying. I mean, I suppose it was funny at the time, but everybody froze, and he turned around. He said, "Who did that?" And he was like steam coming out of his ears, and I mean, he was very red in the face. I thought, is he going to have a heart attack? And the only thing is, and he was saying, "Who did this?" But then 3 or 4 of the constables came down, and I looked round, and they were all sniggering and laughing at this, because the impression we got was that he was a bit of a tyrant with them, and he just, I don't know, maybe he was just looking for problems that weren't there.
Yeah.
But they came down, and because they thought he's going to get ill in a minute, so they escorted him back, and they were desperately trying to hide their laughter. I mean, I just thought, well, that poor chap, he bought his pie, but it was more important to try and get it to stop this policeman hassling us. And it's